Welcome back to Fuel Up Classic. Now today I'm joined by Mathilda, who is my #1 fan on Fuel Up Classic, but I actually think she's secretly just a fan of the MGB GT because every time we get this car out, she loves to go for a ride in it. She likes to sort of sniff around it and everything else, and I just think that's great. So she's joining me for this segment of the video. But the idea of this is just to respond to my last update that I did on my 1966 MGB GT, because it seemed to go down really well with you guys at home. And overwhelmingly, when I asked the question, what do I do with it? You guys said, use it, improve it, and film it. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. I was unsure of what to do with this car, but I think now my mind is very much made up. We are going to recommission this car, and in this video, I'm going to show you some of the car's worst areas. I haven't shown you all of the bits before. I don't think I've ever shown you under the bonnet. There are some bits that definitely need to be addressed. But also, I want to discuss with you the future. What we're going to do with it. Do we take this on an epic road trip? That's what I keep thinking with this car. I don't care what it looks like. It's never going to be a show winner. But what a fun thing to get this car mechanically up to scratch and take it somewhere that perhaps you wouldn't expect an MGB to visit. So I'm open to many suggestions on that one. I've got a few ideas, but I'd love to hear yours. But come and join me, and I'll just show you around a little bit closer detail of my 1966 MGB GT that is very much not a restoration project. It is a recommissioning project, or at least that's what I keep telling myself anyway. So you're going to see these things as I do. It might be a little bit rough and ready with the camera work, but what does it matter? I can be as brutally honest about this car as I want to be, and I'll show you some of its worst areas. But also, I quite enjoy the fact that this is a car that isn't a show standard vehicle. I can park it anywhere. I leave it out in all weathers, and I just enjoy it for what it is. So let's have a look under the bonnet, because I don't know if I've ever actually shown you under here. Now, the first thing I should point out, this bonnet does not fit correctly. It catches on the bulkhead and it makes me squirm every single time. I do need to adjust it. I've bought a replacement bonnet. Yes, so there you go. But under here, it is all fairly straight and solid. The inner wings are really good. The engine, as I found out when I found that whole history file hidden under the passenger seat, this had a replacement reconditioned engine back in 2009, and it's done very few miles since. So it's quite a healthy engine, I think, but we do need to go over it. It needs those carbs looking at, it needs all the rubber components replacing, and just a damn good service, I think. But hone in on this wing here and you start to see, and I mentioned it in my previous video, I don't want to speak badly of the previous owners of this car, but they were certainly DIY enthusiasts, and you start to see some of the absolute mess of wiring under the bonnet there. Now this is a kill switch, but it doesn't actually do anything, but it's all wired in. There's live wires everywhere, dodgy insulation. I am amazed that everything on this car works electrically, bar the kill switch, because the amount of bodged up wiring on this, I just really didn't think anything would work at all. But it does. But that's going to be an issue that we need to sort. Obviously, we need a new radiator as well. It started to go at the bottom. It doesn't actually seem to be losing any coolant, but as a good precaution, I am going to overhaul all the coolant system, all the fuel system, and of course get that wiring checked under here as well. But everything else is all in its place. Again, structurally nice and solid, which is what we like to see. No signs of accident damage, anything like that. So again, a basis for something to be just tinkered with in time, I think. The chrome work, well, it's not too bad, really. It's pitted, it's rusted in places. Hello, Mathilda. Yes, I know. Not too bad. It's obviously had spotlights fitted in the past where they've drilled into the bumper, but what does it matter? And as was pointed out, and I didn't notice this until someone in the comments mentioned it on my first video, but if you look very, very closely, the front wings of this car are different. If you look at where these indicator lights fit, there's a different gap on each side, and that means that this car perhaps Not that surprising because it is a 1966 car. It's had a replacement front wing at some point from a later car. And for a while back in the 90s, early 2000s, you couldn't buy Mark 1 front wings. So I'm guessing that's why it is. I didn't even spot it, but the keen viewers at home did. So now I've seen it, it really annoys me, but hey ho, it's very, very minor thing in the long list of issues with this car. And as you've probably noticed as well, it's got these, what I assume were once those hideous leather bonnet straps fitted, which are long since perished and gone. As I say, I bought a replacement bonnet for the car anyway, but we'll try and get these old screws out, and just think they look pretty ugly. I don't like them when they're fitted on the cars, so that will be something to replace. So as you come round the vehicle, of course, I have driven this car a few times locally, and the tyres were replaced relatively recently. I found the invoices for them, so in terms of safety, I'm not too fussed about those. They have all been checked. There's no perishing, there's no cracks or anything like that. But as a precaution, we are going to be going through anything rubber on this car, I think will be replaced. And that will probably include a new set of tyres as well, even though these aren't that old. Brakes as well, I hope you can see down there, desperate need of replacement. Mathilda, come out the way. In need of a replacement, they are well past their best. So new discs and pads, and we'll probably overhaul the brake lines and calipers as well. Having said that, it does still stop absolutely fine. But again, we need to recommission this car. And I'm very keen to say recommission, not restore. That's the key with this car. And that overwhelmingly seems to be what you guys at home suggested as well. Let's just use it, improve it, drive it for what it is. It doesn't need to be anything special. It's not going to be winning any trophies at local car shows, that's for sure. And honestly, I don't want it to. I just want to enjoy it for what it is. And an MGB, a properly sorted mechanical MGB GT, there's nothing quite like them. They drive really, really well. And I think I've pointed out to you before, there's some marks here. The bottom of this door has gone. Very common rust point on an MGB. The sills, surprisingly solid, which is great because it's quite a complex arrangement on an MGB. So we're not looking at replacing any of the sills. The one side, and I think it is the other side, is damaged. Well, it could be this one actually, is dented. But structurally, it's all there. It's solid. So that's a sigh of relief for my wallet anyway. So we'll probably look at replacing this door in time and doing those sorts of things. Now, interior-wise, well, there's not much to say. Absolutely hideous centre console has been butchered by somebody and, you know, put some aftermarket dials which don't actually seem to be connected to anything. So I think we're going to remove that. We'll probably put the original speaker grille back in. And again, an MGB of this period is just a lovely interior. It's sort of peak 1960s, I think. So very little to do. I might swap the motor litre steering wheel for the original one that it should have, which is a large sort of, that one very similar to the MGA on these early MGBs. I haven't decided yet, but we'll see. Again, let me know. These are just minor little cosmetic tweaks, nothing major. But come round the back, because I have found out with this car a new issue, which I think is actually caused by a multitude of factors. This tailgate is completely rotted out, and I mean really bad. I've bought a replacement to be fitted, and that's a job when I've got a spare weekend. And I think you'll probably remember, we didn't even have a rear light on here, so it's had a replacement rear light, very minor job. But have a look in here, because water ingress is my current enemy with this car. I think it's getting in where this is all rusted away, and I'll show you on this rear wing as well. There's quite a lot of corrosion. I think water is getting in. But have a look under this here. I bet you the boot has got water in it again, even though I've dried, yes. So lots of moisture, lots of damp. I have poked and prodded around. Everything is solid. There is no sort of terminal corrosion in that boot floor, but water is getting in all the time, and obviously it makes the cabin smell musty. It's just not very pleasant. This is soaking wet, and also you can see mold and mildew is collecting. So there's a few things to do on this car. Still shuts though, which is nice. And as I say, this bit of rot here is getting worse and worse, and I really need to address this. I know this is going to be a fairly complex thing, but I think water is getting through this corrosion, again leaking into the boot floor. It's not helping matters, and I'm sure if this car sits out in the winter, we're going to have some big problems there. So that's got to be addressed. This car is going to an MG specialist in the new year, and it's very difficult with YouTube and things to do things in real time. I have other projects on the go, I have other cars, other things going on that fills up my days, so I have to give you quite generous gaps in between where I can film an update. But what I can tell you at this point, the car will be going to a very, very well-respected MG specialist for a bit of a recommissioning in the new year. I'm going to be getting hands-on as much as possible as well, but I'm just looking forward to bringing this car up to a new level and enjoying it. And again, I've got to remind you, I want to hear your road trip suggestions. I've got some ideas, but I'll share them with you at a later date. Anything's on the table at the moment. I want to take this somewhere that perhaps no MGB's been before, and that's a big ask because these are a very popular car, but where can we take it? Think far and wide. Let me know in the comments below. No jokes, it's not going to the scrapyard because I'm guessing that's going to be someone's smart comment, but where can we take it on a road trip? And that really concludes this car. There is a couple of horror stories when it comes to cosmetics, but structurally, I have had the car up in the air, I have poked around, and what I needed to do was satisfy myself that this wasn't just a rotten body shell that we'd spend hundreds of hours welding up. It might look a bit scabby, but it's actually solid underneath. There is evidence that it's been cared for a lot throughout its life. So now it's my turn. And I am of the belief with any classic car, I know it's one that gets thrown around quite a lot, but you are a custodian, you never really own them, you look after them, you preserve them, you enjoy them, which is the most important thing, and then you pass them on to the next person to do. And that's really what I plan to do with this car. So there we are. It was just a quick video to show you a little bit more about the car, to tell you that I do read all the comments and I do listen to people's suggestions of what to do, and this channel is all about, I know we bring a wide variety of classic cars on the channel and review them, I tell you things to look out for, what to pay, but some of my own personal cars, well, it's nice to bring you guys along for the journey as well, and that's what I want to do. The highs and the lows, and it's never plain sailing with classic cars, especially not when you take an old one like this that was already a little bit neglected, a little bit rusty here and there. But the overwhelming consensus from you guys, and of course from me as well, is that we are going to enjoy this car. We're going to bring it up to a level. I hope you get to see this car on some interesting road trips, some interesting journeys around, who knows, around the UK, around Europe, perhaps even further afield than that. Let's see, anything's possible with this. It's a great basis for something. So, there we have it. Join me on my next videos. As I've said, we've got a MGC GT coming up very, very soon, an absolutely pristine example, Triumph TR7, Reliant Scimitar, a couple of special things as well, which I will reveal later on in the year, updates on the £500 Jaguar project. So please do subscribe if you haven't already. It means an awful lot to each and every one of you who do subscribe, comment and like my classic car videos. Thank you very much.